Everybody thought I was going to get fired, but I didn't. So, as I say, I am one of those blind people who is totally blind, but I want to define blindness now for you so that you don't have the same image that a lot of people do. Blindness, when a person says that he or she is blind, it doesn't mean that we have zero vision. Some of us do, like me. I have zero light perception. I don't know when the lights are on or off using the traditional eyeball method. But there are lots and lots of blind people, they outnumber the totally blind, who have just enough vision that they can see things, like they can see color, they can recognize some people, but they don't drive and they don't read hundreds of pages very well because their vision is so poor that the print just doesn't come across properly. So when you think about somebody who is blind, please imagine that that person might or might not have some usable vision, and recognize that if they do have usable vision, the other thing I wanted you to think about is the odds are that when they grew up, if they grew up as a person with very low vision, that the school system did not teach them Braille, that the school system forced them to use large print, and that their visual reading rate is something on the order of 50 words per minute. Now, you guys are all in this room. How many of you are limited and can only read print at 50 words a minute? I don't want to see any hands. None of you, right? You can all read pretty fast. The average print reading speed is a couple of 100 words per minute. And that's what it is also if you're using Braille. And some people might say, oh, well, talking computers, that's a form of reading. No, it is not. Yes, I use speech to process a lot of information because it gets me there faster. I think I'm using my computer at 250, 300 words per minute. You wouldn't understand it, not without training. That gives me something to lord over you guys, right? I can listen to speech faster than you, but you could be trained. But a person who has low vision, who is technically still blind because they're not driving and they're not reading efficiently, if they're reading only at 50 words a minute, think of the delay that happens with them. But if they had learned Braille in school, if they had learned how to use their vision less and their other abilities more, they would then be able to do things that you normally would think of as requiring sight, not using sight. So what are some of the things that people who are blind can do? Well, the first thing that comes to your mind, I'm sure, is driving. There's no way that a person right now can drive. And that is mostly true. However, for those of you who have access to Google, which has become the predominant search engine, I guess, in the world, why don't you Google, after this thing is over, Blind Driver Challenge? Because about a decade ago, a totally blind man took a specially designed car and drove it completely blind with added on technology around the Indianapolis Speedway on the track. And this was recorded live on YouTube, and you can go see it. The person had no vision at all, and he drove the car around, which only goes to prove that vision is not all what it's cracked up to be. If we get the right technology, if we get the right supports, we can eventually have autonomous vehicles that will drive mostly themselves. And if the designers of those cars do the right thing, which is to say, give us a way to tell the car where we want to go that doesn't require me to look at the screen, then, assuming we had enough money, because I predict an autonomous vehicle will cost 150 grand or something thereabout. That's in today's dollars, not tomorrow's dollars. You know, then we could conceive of a blind person owning a car. In the meantime, I would be willing to put even money on the fact that my transportation budget is probably less than yours. If you've ever had to replace the chip in the car or your transmission, right, you would understand what I'm talking about. People spend $700, $800 a month, especially if they're paying off the car. And I don't think I spend $700 or $800 a month, even if I choose to take Uber every single day. So I think that we as a society, as we think about how we design technology in the future and even now, the one message that I'm trying to get across to everybody is that the word blind, number one, means you got some vision, mostly. And number two, I don't think that we want the word blind to be associated with things like helplessness, excessive dependence, poverty, or whatever. I mean, some blind people in my acquaintance make 3 times as much money as I do, and I'm on a fixed income now because I'm retired, but I'm fortunate enough to have gotten the good sense when I was younger to start saving early. How many of your kids can say that? Not too many. I know of some people who are 50 years old who come to me and they say, I don't have any money in the bank. And I say, you're 50 years old, you don't have any money in the bank. I think you have something to worry about pretty soon, because nowadays when you retire, I don't know what the figure is, but you have to have a couple million if you really want to be able to survive what's going to come after, as we all know. So let me ask this question. How many of you guys are retired now? Say yes. Yes. Okay, so a lot of you are, and so you're looking at the prospect of we're all on fixed incomes. And what I mean by that is our retirement pensions don't go up as our costs go up. Our Social Security goes up only a little bit when our cost goes up. We're pretty much stuck with the reserves that we've been fortunate enough to accumulate in our life, and we're going to depend on those reserves and the market, hopefully, to keep us in the lifestyle to which we wish to stay accustomed, right? That's what we want to do. So the thing that people who are blind in Colorado are very fortunate to have, I'm switching topics now. You all know Colorado is a vote by mail state, right? A vote by mail state. We vote, we get our ballots in the mail, and we take a pen or whatever it is, and we circle the names, and then we send the piece of paper in. So when I moved to Colorado in late 2018, I found out that Colorado was a vote by mail state. I had no idea. And so I thought, how am I going to vote? Because there are times when my wife has a little bit of vision, just enough to be dangerous, I always tell her. She can mark the ballot on her own if she wants. It takes her a while, but she can do it. But I couldn't. And so my only choice, the first election that I participated in when I moved up here, was to go down to our clubhouse at Heather Gardens and use the voting machine. And so my wife and I, we went down there to use the voting machine. And you know, she has great luck with computers, let me tell you. 3 times she marked the ballot with this accessible equipment. 3 times the system crashed, right, at the clubhouse. So it took her 4 tries and 2.5 hours to get her ballot marked so that she could vote. And so I got together with my blind friends in the National Federation of the Blind of Colorado, and I said, something's got to be done about this. Let's go and see if we can't get a law passed in Colorado that makes the mail ballot accessible to people with disabilities. And so we did. We went to the General Assembly early last year, 2019. We had some great friends in the Senate, Senator Jesse Danielson in particular. We got the bill through. It was a completely bipartisan supported bill, not one opposing vote. Now in Colorado, when the ballots are mailed out, a person with a disability can go to myballot.sos.colorado.gov. Did you get that? Everybody wrote that? myballot.sos.colorado.gov. All you do is you go in there, you identify who you are, you state your date of birth, your county affiliation, you know, where your ballot is going to be. It pops a ballot up on your computer screen or your smartphone screen. You mark all the check. You pick the party, if it's a primary that you want to go to. You check all the boxes that match the people you want to vote for. And then you invoke a print function, and 2 documents get printed. One of them is the ballot itself, and the other one is what's called a ballot application, which has already been filled in on the computer, except you have to sign the bottom. You send that whole package in. You could stick that whole thing into your regular ballot envelope. The county processes it, counts your vote, and you can do all of this, or I can, without anybody knowing who I voted for. And Colorado as a state, you know, you hear all about this, people worried about vote by mail and what's going to do. The blind are petrified in other states about vote by mail, because for them, it means that they either have to risk their health and go to the polling place, or trust somebody who can see to mark the ballot for them, and neither alternative is something that a lot of us want to do. So, you know, people from Colorado who are blind are saying, nah, 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 we beat all of you, right? You know. Now, the only weakness in the system that exists right now, and I learned this actually the hard way by talking to some younger people, is that I'm noticing that a lot of people don't own printers today. I find that amazing. That people don't own printers, but yes, there are a number of them. So the next thing we're going to work on next year as a legislative initiative is we're going to go to the General Assembly and we're going to say, people don't have printers, let's find a way to get our ballots sent in electronically and overcome the valid concerns that the security people have about finding a secure way to get the information in. So if you guys know anybody who wants to help improve the accessibility of voting for people with disabilities, and by the way, anybody who claims to have a disability, like you could be deaf, you could be in a wheelchair and still use this online voting system, as long as you got computer, smartphone, tablet, and a printer, all is good. And Colorado, I think, is one of the very small handful of states that has all this stuff already in place. Yay for Colorado. And I'm an immigrant, right? Legal immigrant. Moved here from New Mexico. So, you know, I can take pride in Colorado, right? Having all this good stuff. One of the biggest problems I think that people like me face in the world, frankly, if you really want to get straight down to it, is that when any of us thinks about blindness and not having normal vision, there is an automatic assumption which is made not intellectually in your head, but down in your heart, which says, I can't see, it must mean that my life as a productive citizen is over. I can't see, I therefore cannot walk across a room without crashing into things and knocking things over. I can't see, I can't raise children. I can't see, I can't drive, I can't see, I can't travel. All about, I can't see, I can't, I can't, I can't, I can't. Now, nobody should be blamed for this kind of thinking, because the use of vision in our society is hardwired right up here. It's a reflex. When we want to learn something, when we want to observe somebody doing something, when we want to pick up a new piece of information. Somebody deny this and tell me if I'm wrong, but I think the first thing you do is you try to look at it. You don't try to touch it. You don't try to ask about it. You want to look. You want to see. And how often have we heard the expression, seeing is believing? We've heard that a lot, right? Now, I want you to know that those people who have managed to and I'm not one of these, who have managed to understand the fundamentals of the universe, who know about astrophysics and how the universe was created, people like Stephen Hawking, who, by the way, is not blind, right, let's say. A lot of our understanding of the universe is not visual. A lot of our understanding of the universe comes from very complicated mathematical theories that neither you nor I understands. But it is completely non-visual. The only reason they use vision in astronomy is to convey information to other people who don't understand the mathematics. You get what I'm saying? So there's a lot of value, a lot of information, a lot of concepts that can be communicated non-visually, but the first way to understand this is to recognize that from time to time, all of us, and I include myself in this group, think that in order to know something, we must find a way to see it. In my case, it would be pay some 13-year-old kid to take a look at it, right? I used to hire what I call the fully plug compatible biological interface. That's a human being to read. It's a technical term, right? A fully plug compatible biological interface. They'll fetch for you, they'll drink, they'll bring you coffee, and they'll get cranky, they'll demand more money, right? The fully plug compatible biological. But in the day before we had talking anything, which is when I started writing computer programs back in 1972, a long time ago, it was punch cards, computers with printers and punch cards and nothing else. No disk drives, no monitors, no displays, just a bunch of blinkety lights on the console. And that's where I wrote my first program. Now, your iPhones, some of you have iPhones, I've heard them in this room, at least 3 of you already, I know. 64 gig is your minimum amount of memory in that iPhone, that little thing that you can carry in your purse or your pocket. The first computer I wrote a program on had a whopping 4K of memory. That small little thing. And so the program, I had to teach the computer how to do long division in the coding that I wrote because it didn't know how. Because if I didn't teach it to do long division, it would take it 20 minutes to do one division, and that was way too long. These days, of course, now they can do it a whole lot faster because we can pack small things into memory the size of our thumbnail, right? That's what we can do now. And that has made possible a lot of cool things on smartphones. Things like built-in speech output so that a blind person can operate Android phones, iPhones, without having to see the screen. Software that can take pictures of printed text and convert that picture into spoken words that can be read by somebody who's blind, or which can be transferred to a braille device so that I can get my fingers on the material. That's what the current technology can do. Technology on your smartphone that has GPS built in, so you can say, where the heck am I? And the phone can come back and say, I don't understand that. I mean, okay, so how many of you guys have smart speakers? Say yes. Yes. Echo, Google, right? And how many times do you holler, stop? Because the smart speaker is really not that smart. And have you noticed, by the way, that the technology that we use doesn't accommodate itself to work the way we want? Think about this now. We, in order to get it to do, if I want she who must not be named, I can't say her name because maybe some of you have an echo right now, to play a certain radio station, if I don't say the thing correctly, she'll come back and say, I can't find such and such. I listened to a station in Australia called Sydney's Classic Hits on TuneIn, and I had to find what was the series of words that would get the echo to play that particular station. Most of the time I would get, I cannot find it, I don't understand it, ad nauseum, to the point where I got thoroughly frustrated. Now, because technology moves so quickly and changes so rapidly, older people like me are going to hate that in a while. We can envision smart speakers one day that will actually do what we want based on what we say, as opposed to us having to figure out how to say the phrase or whatever to make it do what we want it to do. In the workplace, how many, when you go into the office, the stock in trade right now in most offices is Microsoft Office. If you don't know how to do Word, if you don't know how to do Outlook or Excel or PowerPoint, you're pretty well dead. The employer looks at you like, you better learn how to do that, ma'am, sir, because if you don't, you're not going to get a job here because that's what we use in the office. So those people who were not already using that stuff sat down and buckled down and they learned how to do it, and that's how they do email, and they go, oh yeah, I'm used to this now. But at some point, the computer will, we hope anyway, will turn around and say, what email program do you know? Or what are you familiar with? And then it changes how the machine works so that it matches up with your work style. If we can get the technology to do that, society is in good shape. If we can't, then ultimately in the long run, I think all of us will start thinking like computers. And we're going to bury ourselves in a cascade of numbers which will not respect human feelings, human drive, human motivation, and human creativity. I've already seen leaders of large corporations not be creative because the computer didn't show them a graph or a number that helped them to solve an issue. And back in the day, I complain about this all the time to my friends and family who will listen. That number is getting smaller, I guess I have to say, especially my daughter, right? But I keep saying, the leaders of today do not have the instinct to manage people to know who's a good hire and who's a bad hire. And I know you, if any of you work in HR, you're going, oh no, that's not the way it's supposed to be. Well, guess what? When I did hiring, I had coffee with the people I interviewed, and I had conversations with them, and then I figured out a way to doodle the paperwork to match up what the HR people wanted so that I could get the person I thought was good to hire to be hired. And I didn't worry so much about degrees or credentials. I was looking at what's their native intelligence. They graduated from college, that's terrific. But I used to supervise master's degree counselors who could not write complete sentences in a formal letter. That tells me that there's something wrong with the education system because it pushed those people through and they didn't know what they were going to do. So with that, I am happy now. Thank you very much for this opportunity to sort of, some people say I tend to ramble. I try to be as organized and coherent as possible. I'm happy to take questions. Somebody please recognize the raised hand.
All right, so thank you so much, first of all, to Curtis for coming today. If you have a question on the chat, ask the question to David and he'll let us know. David is our club administrator and the Zoom guru, so we'll share that to the people in the room. Anybody in the room have any questions for Curtis? No? Nobody? No hands are up in the air. So, but anybody on Zoom? Oh, Ev's got a question. Ev, what's the question?
Oh, right.
Okay, here you go. Here's the mic.
So, as I said, my wife and I are both blind. We do have a daughter who is fully sighted, and no, she doesn't take care of us. And when she was in high school, you know how kids are when they're in high school, right? Her friends would, you know, the house would be dark, the lights would be off, and her friends would go. And she's coming home like an hour late, you know, because Dad would say, "I want you here by 10:25 p.m." and it's 11:30. She's an hour late. And her friends would say, "Don't worry, you can just sneak in. Your dad won't even know that you're there." And she goes, "Are you kidding? He's probably up reading a book." So she knew that she couldn't get away with stuff. And every once in a while, I remember, I don't know if any of you remember star 69 on your phone. So she called me one time and said she was really late and blah, blah. She was in Bloomington, Minnesota or something. And so when I hung up, I pushed star 69 and it gave a phone number that was clearly in St. Paul, Minnesota. So I know I did. So I call that number back and I said, "You have 29.5 minutes to get your butt at home because I know you're not in Bloomington like you told me. I expect to see you here in 29.5 minutes. Get your butt moving." And she had no idea how Dad had accomplished it. This was before the days of caller ID, right? Just to let you know. It's perfect.
Any other questions? Well, oh, Mr. Rapp's got a question. What island you from?
I was born in Oahu.
Born in Oahu. Okay. Very cool. Well, I'll tell you, on behalf of our club and on behalf of, and a big thank you to Ev as well. We're so grateful for you taking the time to come speak to us today. So in your hand here, I'm going to put a coin. It's a challenge coin. It has the 4-way test on the back, and you probably could read that because it's indented. And want to just say thank you on behalf of our club. We're so grateful, and I love the fact that you solve problems. And I thought that's really what I took out of it. When he went to the legislature to solve a problem, he didn't just complain about it. And I think that is such a great thing. And you're an inspiration to me, and I think for the rest of the club as well.
Thanks for having me.
So thank you so much. I'll walk over here to the seat. Thank you. You can sit right here. It's perfect. Got it okay? Yep, perfect. Yep, that's where I put you right there. Perfect. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us this week, and I will bid you all adieu, and we are adjourned. That's a great question. I'll find out for you, and I'll put it in the email. Thank you, Mr. Suss.